Mike Majeski's up on the screen. I'm here in front of my fire. Quick introduction, then I'll let Mike kind of run with it here. So who is Mike? Mike Majeski, he works with Remax Specialists in Western Toronto. He's number 15 in Remax. He's one of my long-term clients and somebody I admire a lot, which is why I wanted to bring him on and share his world with you. For a lot of people are on who don't know me, I'm Suze Cumming. I've been in this industry far too long. I won't even say because it's kind of embarrassing. But I've been coaching for 18 years and I sold in downtown Toronto before that. So you can start to do the calculations. Yeah, I've been around for a while. And my company really focuses on bringing the professional skills to real estate and not the sort of raw motivation that has become so popular in our industry. And the reason I wanted to do this time with Mike today is I think that Mike has just built this really amazing business that's founded in the principles that I believe in. We've kind of done this together because we've been working together for 7 years, but he's done the work. I've just kind of been there as a thinking partner. So that's kind of what we're up for today. We've got some questions. We're gonna spend the first half of our hour, just bantering between Mike and I. I'm going to let everyone else in, and then we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So you guys being here in person is really great because I'm going to edit this before the recording's released. So you're going to get Mike with his mistakes and with his errors, all the real McCoy. Mike, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it's my absolute pleasure. Hey,
What's
everyone. Thanks for joining us.
It's oh my, it's so good. It's so good to have you here. Um, you know, I was thinking about questions, and so Mike and I don't have a photo script, but we kind of played around with some of the ideas that we might talk about today, and I sort of came up with some questions. And the first question I was going to say, I said, "Oh, Mike, let's like let them see inside, like the real you." I'm going to ask you, what does your typical morning look like? And he writes back and he goes, "I'd have to lie." And I'm like, "Yeah, don't do that." So, Mike, let's start off with like what your typical morning actually looks like versus what you might like your typical morning to look like.
Yeah, so my typical morning, I have a 5-year-old, and my wife and I we share the responsibilities, and I have them in the mornings. So instead of getting up and doing my 1 hour meditation and working out, and with some big beautiful view of the ocean behind me, like a someone from the movies, and being doing a cold plunge. I'm up. I got lunch all over me. I'm trying to prepare this. I'm trying to get a coffee in before he wakes up. Sometimes I can fit a little workout in after I do the lunch, depending on what time he wakes up. And then we spend that little bit of time together in the morning with no screens or anything like that. It's good connection time. And then I take him to school. He's in a before care program, so I will highlight that I can get him there a little bit earlier. So I'm not waiting till 8 o'clock to drop him off. I can get him there 7:30, and have my day kind of start. My real estate day starts just after 8, and that's usually when I'll do a workout, maybe connect with my wife a little bit, just about what's going on. My wife works with me as well, so we'll do a little check in before we kind of go into the workspace for the day with our staff. And there's food in there and all that stuff. And a lot of the time, I was saying to Suze, I'll wake up and there'll be a deal that I was working on till 11 o'clock the night before, and something's kind of tied up, and I have a sticky note, even though I have a reminder in my phone and I know I'm not going to forget. You got to call this person first thing in the morning. And so some of that stuff's happening right away. And I said to Suze, I can even wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be thinking about, those 3 or 4 things that I'm dealing with. And I'm sure you can all relate to that. I'm not yet the Zen master who shuts it on and off. I definitely am thinking about these things perpetually. But I have found, with the help of Suze, a peace around that stuff. So it's not like it's keeping me up at night. I'm going to bed, I'm waking up, I'm feeling empowered and motivated to solve these problems. But I really just have kind of the typical work morning. And then I start my day, and I have a priority list based on, the things that Suze and I and Sylvia from my office, we talk about. You have different things that are priorities. Like if something needs to firm up, for example, if there's a deal that's firming up in a really short period of time, that's always going to be your top priority. New business, that's usually going to be second priority to anything that's got a burn time on it. And it kind of goes down the list from there. Always trying to keep customer service and people happy as the whole balloon around the whole thing.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. So you guys should have written those priorities down. That's kind of a big deal for management of time. Mike, thanks for giving us a little look under the hood on your real life. And I think that's important for us to know is that the agents who are doing a lot of business are normal, everyday people with exactly the same challenges we have. And it's just how you deal with those challenges that give us an opportunity to create the life we want. So thank you. And thank you for pointing out that Sylvia Perdue has joined us. Sylvia is Mike's manager, which is very different from his coach, but we're both his mentors or his elders. We're both been at this a really long time. And one of the beautiful things about Mike is that he reaches out to learn, to help from anybody that he thinks can give him information. So we're going to invite Sylvia up in the Q&A later on, but just to acknowledge that she's here. She's the broker manager at Remax Specialist. She celebrated. Are you guys ready? Can I say this, Sylvia? Nod yes, if I can say how long you celebrated. Just this past couple of weeks, she celebrated 50 years since she did her first real estate transaction. And I'm only at 40, so this is my elder as well, and still cooking and still really contributing in a massive way to the brokerage. So,
And with more energy than anyone I know.
I love that. So yeah, so we'll hear from Sylvia later. But it's a good chance that I want everyone to put in the chat where you're from. Just where you trade. You're obviously all realtors, but are you Toronto? What part of Toronto? Ontario, BC? Where are you from? Just so we can get a bit of a pace for you guys on where you're at, and we'll take a look at that later. Okay, Mike. So then you switched over from your real everyday world, kids, wife, house, food, right, over to real estate priorities and started doing that. So people have joined us today and people are going to join for the recording, the edited version for the recording, because you're really successful. You've done really well. And, congrats on that. You've worked hard for it, but they want to learn from you. So you're sitting at number 15 for Remax, for independent agents, for Canada, for 2024. Your deal count, I believe, is 69. Maybe it's 70 now. Did you get one? So 69. Very comparable to years that you had in the past. And yet, we know that the commission pool is down by 30 or 40%, and you've maintained same numbers. So you've obviously increased your market share dramatically during this slowing market. And so the question is, what can you share about your production and how you got to where you are now?
Well, the thing that's been kind of saving my butt right now, I think, in these difficult years, is a couple things. The business keeps coming in because early on, Suze taught me the same thing that we hear time and time again when you're out there talking to people about real estate. But Suze had this thing, and I'm not just plugging Suze right now. I'd say this if her name wasn't here. She'd be like, be out there having meaningful real estate conversations. The key piece there being meaningful. And I don't even think I realized what that was for a few years, because Suze helped me realize that everyone that's going to sell real estate is going through a massive transition. It could be the best, most exciting transition of their life. I just got a bunch of money and I'm going to buy my dream house. But oftentimes I'm going from here to here. We've lost someone, we need to sell their piece of property. And so a lot of my business that's been coming in has been generated through just referrals and past business, people just calling me from giving them a real high level of service and ethics and everything that goes into creating the best real estate transaction possible. The other piece is I'm very immersed in my neighborhood. And so continuing to be immersed in a specific market and being the known person in that area has filled those little gaps. I mean, I have slow months and slow weeks and slow days, just like everyone. And when you have these other sources, these streams of business that come in, they tend to, for me anyway, they're filling those gaps where I might be working really hard to find business over here, but this place and this place and this place are still pumping me business. And because I have these meaningful conversations that have turned into meaningful relationships, the trust is there and I can get to the brass tacks quickly with people and I can get listings up quickly without having to court them for long periods of time. So that's been fundamental in keeping the business coming in. And I would say the next piece is the problem solving. I don't know. you can't shake your heads because I can only see like 7 people here, but not only has it been a hard year to find business, man, has it been a hard year to close business, to actually sell it, to have your seller realize that they're not going to get that price they were going to get 2.5 years ago that their neighbor got. And a lot of the times it's not just that they want that price, right? They have reason with the money. You know, they've come up with a number that they need to get out of a problem or to solve another thing that they need to solve or to create a solution. And in many cases, as you guys know, that doesn't line up. The money they want for their house and what they think they need, they have no relation to each other. The market doesn't rely on their personal need or wishes. And also the buyers are out to lunch in many cases, or they're really into lunch, if that's a phrase. And they're saying, well, the market sucks and you should accept this offer. And, you know, a lot of the time we're not willing to do that. And so there's all these mixed feelings, whereas in COVID, everyone just agreed, guess what? Prices are going up. So the sellers expected more money and the buyers expected to pay more money. And we had lots of easy transactions. Or that's how I felt anyway, for a solid piece of time. And now you have one expectation from the seller and a different expectation from the buyer. And so Suze and I have spent a lot of time on the phone just trying to help people with the psychology. Right. And I often say when I don't teach at Remax, but Sylvia will ask me to come and sit in on something. And I'll say, you know, a lot less deals fall between my fingers. They just do because I call Suze and I call Sylvia and I go, what do I do? You know, I got this scenario here. And, you know, we all have great instincts. You people, me, Sylvia, Suze, everyone. But we get in the way of ourselves. And I've been doing this for 7 years with Suze, what I think is the highest, most in-depth level training to understand and hear people on a different level so that I can deliver what they truly need in between the line stuff. And I still am coming back to Suze twice this week as an example, no lie, being like, okay, here's the situation. I have an estate sale and I have 3 people and this is the dynamic. And then we're having conversations that are like, well, you need to go to this person and give them permission and get underneath the psychology of this piece, not maliciously or strategically, like forthcomingly. Talk to that person who's having a hard time and see if you can unveil their difficulty, their struggle with selling, and then give them freedom to not make that decision if they don't want to at the same time. And what I'm finding is every time I talk to Suze, it's like 10 o'clock at night. Thank God she's on the West Coast, so it's only 7 o'clock. And to me, it looks like spaghetti. Everything's messy. And then by the end of the night, property sold. People are happy on both sides. I'm feeling satisfied. Um, and there's something that feels really good about it. And for all the challenges of this year, I can honestly say I feel like I've been helping people on a different scale achieve their biggest needs. And it's setting me apart. And there's other agents out there who do this. The problem is the vast majority of people I think are going, give me the business, I'm putting up a sign, it'll sell. Give me the business, I'll put up a sign, it'll sell. And as you guys know right now, properties aren't selling themselves. So that's really kind of been the thing. And I'll add one more thing if I'm going on too long, Suze.
No, it's great. I'm not going to interfere with what this messaging is beautiful.
I've hired some people to, I always have assistants, but my assistants, they run under my inefficiencies, if that makes any sense, because I've set them up to just live in my crazy head. And I brought on my wife, who's an incredible project manager at the highest level. And she's turned what was just a crazy everything in the back of my head and in my cell phone into a way more structured business, so that we're catching every little crumb right now, because every little crumb matters in markets like this. Like it didn't matter in COVID. You could say, oh, I forgot to call that person back. Oh, well, I sold 3 more houses. Well, now that follow-up is so important. The integrity of that follow-up, the way in which you do it, the timing. Like you're getting someone that's calling about a lease that you don't want to do, and someone that's calling about this and this and this and this, and it's hard to stay on top of it. So my wife's come in, and guys, I'm still a right notepad crazy man, but my wife holds me down at different times throughout the day, specifically Monday morning and Thursday morning. And we do a whole recap of every single lead, follow up, everything that's coming to the business. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. And every staff member sees that piece and says, okay. And then I have the luxury to say, you call that Anna, just message that person and say, haven't forgotten about them. And I'm really looking forward to meeting up, and book a date 2 weeks from now. And we're just hitting every little crumb, if that analogy can make sense. And we're prioritizing and really massaging and trying to give a whole level of service to these people that we're working with, almost to the point where I want to tell my wife, enough. How many things do we have to follow up with? These people bought 3 months ago. Why are we still sending them something and doing this? And I have an architect from one of the biggest firms in Toronto that just called me out of the blue and said, I have never dealt with a more organized organization, bar none, than I have with your team right now. And I
Beautiful.
just thought, holy shit, this has nothing to do with me. This is
I'm
what
gonna
I'm
I'm gonna
looking
interrupt you,
for.
Mike. I mean, this is so much. It's so rich. There's so many gold nuggets in here. And time is ticking on. So, the organization, I think a lot of people have that, and the more business, but what I really want to just focus on, the meaningful conversations, the empathy to deeply understand people, to go underneath, and what it takes for you to be in that headspace, right? So this organization that your team, now the evolving team, is able to do, so that you are present for your clients, and the magic of that. I just want everyone to just take a second and understand that. If you arrive to your clients to an offer negotiation or a listing presentation or even just a conversation, and you're drowning in details and feeling badly about who you didn't follow up with, and you haven't had enough time with your family, so you're carrying all this baggage, you can't do what Mike was talking about, that is what he holds responsible for, his productivity. Does that align, Mike?
Yes.
I just want to make sure people capture that. What's really important in these balanced markets, which we're going to have for a while. I've worked through them many times. We're going to have this for a while. Is that you're really paying attention to what matters, and what matters is being present and being able to bring those skills to the clients that you're serving. And Mike touched on the psychology and the challenges, and I think probably you guys noticed that, and Mike, add in here after, like, Mike wasn't angry with his sellers for having unrealistic expectations. He understood, right, that there's a reason they have those expectations. Just speak just briefly, Mike, before we move forward, on that empathy, that professional empathy that you feel for your clients.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was Suze that taught me this. It might have been. She described as this is like way off in left field. Suze, apologize for this, but
All
like,
good.
so there's a movie, The Last Samurai, with Tom Cruise. Okay, and there's this battle scene, and he's fighting, and there's arrows flying everywhere, and it's crazy, and that's how I see what's going on when there's a big, heavy real estate negotiation going on. People freaking out over here, their biggest needs need to be met. People over here, their dreams need to be met. There's all these things going on, and it's just chaos. And you can get caught up in that empathetically and start feeling for your clients, and get kind of too connected to what they're feeling, and you can get too caught up in what's going on with the other realtor and stuff. And in that movie, Tom Cruise is in the middle of that battle, and it's crazy, and he has this moment of consciousness, and I think he sees like a cherry blossom, and it's Tom Cruise, he's killing, he's the man, the battle is being won, but it's his consciousness that allows him to step back and actually not be tied up completely in the battle, so that he can win it. And so we're always empathetic so that we can really get to the true need of our client. Oftentimes there's layers and stories and relationships covering the true problem. But if you get in there, we all have that friend who takes on everyone's baggage, and they're a mess because their friends dealing with this and their parents are dealing with this. And you go, wow, you not only got your problems, but you have 30 other people's problems. It's not the same as like a really good, if I can say, like a high level therapist or someone who's there, they're listening to their client, they feel for them. And in some cases, they actually feel love and friendship for the people they're working with. And that's what you're striving for. But if you take it too far, if I take it too far, I get lost and I can't cut through and see the cherry blossom that exists between these two battling armies. And when you can often cut through and create the peace and end it all and have that like sunny end of battle day where everyone's celebrating and the war is over. And is that what you mean, Suze? I go,
I love I didn't really mean anything. I actually wanted to kind of know about the empathy piece, right, for you, because it's been something that I think has been a significant change. Mike cares deeply about his clients, as do you. I hear this from agents all the time, but I care so much. And the professional empathy piece is you need to, care enough to get them a great outcome. Your professional responsibility is to get them a great outcome, which means not going down the emotional rabbit hole with them in many cases. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful analogy. So cherry blossom, you guys. You mentioned a couple of things in there that started to talk about some of the challenges that we have as realtors. The next question really talked about, so as a coach, as a trainer, as an entrepreneur myself, I see sort of baskets of skill sets that realtors need. And the sort of lowest hanging fruit for trainers is lead gen, right? It's kind of the easiest thing to teach. And so there's an awful lot of teaching in lead gen. And it's one thing you have to be good at in real estate. And then the other one is the skills, the sort of the negotiation skills, strategic planning, legal, financial. There's a skills basket that you want to be exceptionally good at. And I believe we need to spend more time at that as an industry, all of us. And then, but the third one is this sort of personal management piece. You'd mentioned earlier, getting out of our own way, managing our emotions in situations where we're in the thick of it. And you agreed that you were willing to play with this just a little bit with these guys. This is probably pretty intimate. But what can you share with people about that? Because I know they're all experiencing that third basket of challenges.
yeah, so I think this is what you're asking. It's a struggle because you want to do well in your business. You want to make everyone happy. I mean, I'm sure you guys follow some of these real estate memes and stuff, and it's like me lying awake in bed at night, wondering if I left the light on in the bathroom at my listing, and my seller's going to be mad at me tomorrow. Because we're all doing our best. We're trying to act as ethically as possible, but we're all people pleasers at the end of the day on some level. We're trying to make everyone we deal with happy. And the truth is, your job's not always to make everyone happy. It's to get them the absolute best result based on what they're telling you. And sometimes that doesn't mean it always has to be the cheeriest. You can really help people sometimes by allowing them to take an offer that's maybe a hair lower than they were dreaming about, or sometimes significantly lower. That's actually quite realistic for the market. And you're kind of coaching them through what is a hard moment. And if you take that home and you wear it like, oh, I should have got them their dream number. Well, now you're as out to lunch as they were with their expectation in the first place, and you wear it. So when I started with Suze, or somewhere in the middle, Suze, am I touching on the right stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't have an agenda. I wanted to invite you to share it's hard. Being a great realtor is hard on our inner world, and that's what you're sharing. So whatever it is that is meaningful to you to share.
You so it's always this struggle to try and you need to be the best, guys. If you're the realtor that someone touches and you change their life and you support them through it. I mean, Sylvia gets people she worked with 40 years ago because they haven't yet found a realtor who makes that type of impact on them. Can you understand that? There's 76,000 realtors in Toronto and they're still calling Sylvia. it's not like she's doing lead gen. She's running 4 offices and doing this and that and the other thing. They're going, this person was so trustworthy and put our needs so in advance that she's there. But you can't, it just doesn't always flow that easily all the time. And I would get so worked up about it. And, you know, you take time away from your families and what's important, and it can be a drain. And every one of us knows about trying to create healthy boundaries and stuff. And I was really struggling with that. And Sue said to me, look, I want to tell you something. No matter how much you care about these people and how much they care about you, or you think they care about you, or how important these relationships are, none of these people are ever going to love you as much as your wife and your son. And that just had this ringing. And I know that kind of sounds in opposition of what we're talking about here, which is helping people at the highest and the most. But it's kind of a, if you don't put your mask on first thing in the plane kind of analogy. If you don't put your own mask on first, you can't help other people. And so creating those boundaries, I've seen Sylvia and Trish, and I'm not plugging Sylvia and Trish. I just love these guys. They're part of my life. So I'm giving you my analogies here. But, you know, Trish has her own, she came into real estate and she's working in a different way because she wanted different boundaries than she saw her mom have. And that sticks out to me as people picking the piece of this business and creating divides. And there's the cool thing is with technology now and with help, you can find a lot of time for yourselves. None of this bullshit. I make $10 million a year and work 6 hours a week. You're not going to bring anyone value doing that. And I hear these coaches and I'm like, yes, selling people an app. But you can really find a healthy amount of time with your family that's really, truly fulfilling while still delivering this amount, this high level amount of service and being there for people. And, you know, without going on too much more about it, that's kind of been our work is working through all those people and then being able to bring it home and find peace with it and shutting it off and having that professional empathy and saying, I'm not going to carry this to bed and stay up all night. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and do my best with it and feel really good about it.
Oh, Mike, thank you. Oh my God. I was almost in tears when you reminded me about the the family piece. It's so important, you guys. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've watched people come into this industry, do well, lose their marriage, lose their friendships, lose their self, lose themselves. And, you know, what's the point, right? Because usually then what happens is their ego gets so big that they kind of mess their business up anyway. And Sylvia can probably speak to that. But wow, okay. So where do we go from here? I mean, that was really good. But you know, Mike and I were talking yesterday just briefly about what this is going to look like. And he was saying, you know, the number 1 agent makes twice what the number 15 agent does. And because they have a different model. They do a different thing, and it's more transactional. It's really lead gen. It's a different thing. And I think what's so remarkable about Mike is that he's built a beautiful business that's incredibly meaningful and profitable in a very balanced life. And those are the people I want to serve. And I think I've been joking around a little bit about a real estate movement to bring professionalism back in, to be able to build a community of agents who operate like this. Because when we operate like this with our clients, what we do is really valuable to them. You can imagine somebody who's scared and confused trying to sell their house, maybe after a loss or an illness or financial challenges or any number of things. And for them to successfully get that house sold and have the experience be really real and meaningful, and to trust the agent is it's worth gold, both financially but also emotionally. So very cool. So I want to get to the Q&A. So I'm going to do one last question for Mike. And that, you know, guys, there's nothing in it for Mike talking to you guys today, right? He does like to keep quiet. He's busy. He doesn't like to expose himself. And when I asked him to do this fireside and he said yes, I was really taken with that. It's very beneficial to you guys because you guys get to see the inner workings of someone who's built a beautiful business. It's incredibly beneficial for me because you guys get to hear the kind of work that Mike and I do from Mike. But there's not a lot in it for Mike. So Mike, share with us why you decided you would do this for all of us today.
Um, all blanketly, all the successful people I've ever seen give back. So that's one thing. It's like, I always wanted to be at a place where I should give back and give some of my ideas that have helped me. I think it's selfish to just keep it all inside. The people that have the confidence that know they'll wake up tomorrow and continue to be who they aren't afraid to go, yeah, try it this way, guys, or they're not holding on to all these things. I also know that when I work with someone who's worked with Suze, we fall into a groove where amazing things happen and people are helped and everyone's satisfied. And I'll find out at the end of the deal, you coached with Suze, or that makes sense. That totally makes sense to me. And I even have like Susan Huntley's on this call. I think I saw her here. And we didn't know each other, but we kind of had a connection through Suze, and we ended up working together and doing a co-listing, and we're friends. We share a similar way of doing real estate, where I could work with her 40 times. You're still ethically putting your clients first and doing this and doing that, but it feels like a real high level professional thing that so many other agents, I know we could all write our own book on. Want me to tell you about an agent I dealt with? What they were doing, or you hear it in the news, or you hear these reports. And I thought, if I can give back to a community spirit that I know is at the heart of what this business really can be, I'll stand up and do an hour on a Zoom, no problem, any day of the week.
Thank you. I love that my clients are out there doing deals together, and I'm often on the phone with both sides, and I'm like, this is so fun. Living here, I live on the ocean, and I spend my winters in the mountains, and sometimes I get to be part of all these transactions going on, and it's beautiful. I'm very lucky. I really want to raise the bar in real estate, and and Mike's on board. He's helping me. I need you guys too. The customer, the consumer really deserves to have great realtors. And it seems like we have a pretty low bar of professionalism and training right now, as you guys are encompassing as you move around. So, and what I want to go to the Q&A here. I'm going to give Mike just a chance to close out before to go to Q&A, but I just want everyone to really understand that the longevity of realtors depends on the level of professionalism that we bring to the consumer. If the consumer doesn't want to deal with us as an industry, technology is going to take a big bite out of us. So, Mike, closing comments before we go to Q&A for you?
Suze, really, and this isn't set up. Um, Suze changed my business. I was selling like 15 houses a year when I went to Suze, and we didn't never worked on prospecting. Suze suggested that I go in a specific direction, interviewing some people, and I got to the specialist, and Sylvia helped me with some prospecting stuff. But there's people out there knocking on doors and doing things 30 times more than I am, and they're having 30 times less the success. It's that meaningful part when I'm at the door that's so effective. And how I started my morning today, truthfully, I woke up at 5:30 and I drove some neighbors to the airport. And that neighbor felt like they could reach out to me and say, hey, any chance you drive us to the airport? Because that guy helps me at every charity event I do. And I thought, I can't say no to you, man. You're always helping me. And I have that all around. And that comes from that meaningful stuff. And my business grew and grew and grew and grew. And yes, I perpetuate with the good old fashioned marketing and pounding the pavement and being relentless, as Sylvia says. But it's the effectiveness of it. You can machine gun bullets, bad analogy, but machine gun and empty a whole magazine and not have any hits. But if you learn to be a sniper and really hit where it counts, you only have to fire once. And so I don't have to spend every day machine gunning. I can be very accurate with what I'm doing and very meaningful. And I think it's going to give me legs in the future to continue to be successful. And I want that for you guys. And I want that for everyone around, because as the industry grows and changes as a whole, it's going to be more and more important that we have the highest level of service so that we're never replaceable. And it's just great to give back and see everyone's faces here today. And it's I had to beg Suze to take me on because she wasn't taking people on back in the day. It didn't have technology, wasn't there so that you could service all these people, right? And I waited, and it was worth the wait. And it's a dream of mine. I said to Sylvia the same. I want to be your top agent. I was one of her 10 percenters or something like that, you know, and I don't know if I'm the number one at our office, but I've definitely been in and out. I'm number one. And I love my other number one people, and to just be a pleasure to be up there, like with my buddy Gary Betts, who was always this guy I wanted to be like. And, you know, I get to go up there on the podium with him sometimes. And to me, that's a accomplishment in itself. So that's it, guys.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mike. So much in there. I'm not even going to pick it apart because I think we can have some nice organic conversations here with the Q&A. And so I do need you to put your hands up because I've got a lot of you and I don't have you all on the screen. So you go to Reactions tab and you hit Hand Up. And please don't be shy because, you know, if you wait, then there'll be too many questions and we won't get to them all. And I know we're going to get Sylvia up here. And so we've got Brian, and then we'll do Sylvia and we'll see who else falls into place. So thank Brian. Let me see if I can get you on,
There we go.
okay, you're unmuted. Awesome.
We're all good.
All right, go ahead.
Right. First off, thanks, Mike, for sharing. Your passion comes through the screen. It feels really good. Good to see. But it was sorry, I wrote it down here. So earlier on, you were saying you're courting, you're better at courting your clients, or even you get your listings up quicker, you get basically signed quicker. What do you think is a big piece of that? It's probably from what Suze has taught you, but maybe you can give us a glimpse of some of the ideas or thought process to that.
Yeah. So I don't actually, my management shakes their head at me because I don't even bring listing paperwork to my meetings because I'm not pressure guy at all. But I think being not pressure person can be highly effective because the truth is, I'm going to give you guys a line. You want to write this down, okay? Because this is gold. I say to my people at listing presentations, wouldn't it be great if you just had someone in your family or a best friend who you've known and trusted your whole life that has integrity and smarts, that happen to be the best realtor in Toronto? That you could just say, whatever you say, we trust you, Justin. You're the man. Like we love Brian. We've seen the way you've handled your whole life. And we see your success in real estate. We have no doubts. You tell us, let's go. And so, you know, that little piece is what everyone wants. It's what I want when I buy a car. It's what I want when I go to a manager. It's what I want when I go to the grocery, whatever, you get it. And so, you know, the thing we all know, or that your brokers should be teaching you, is the number one thing people say when they go to list their houses, they want to list with a trusted friend. And so, hi, do you want to sell your house? Hey, are you looking to buy or sell? That's not a trusted friend. That's a real estate agent. So what I'm trying to do is get underneath that. Hey, how are you? I'm in the neighborhood. We're doing a thing for charity today. I noticed this and that. Oh, by the way, I noticed your roof on the south side is beaten up and the shingles are curled. No pressure, but I got a great guy, super inexpensive. I could give you his number. And I'm not saying give me your email, I'll text you. I'm trying to help people. I'm going, it's a long game. If I show up at that door or they call me for an appraisal because they're trying to work out an estate, I'm looking for several different ways I can help them. And if you solve a bunch of problems for someone before you solve their biggest problem, they're just ready to help you solve that biggest problem. And so normally I go, and by the time I'm done the meeting, they go, can you just send us the paperwork or what do we sign? And I go, I don't bring it. Are you kidding? Bring a piece of paperwork for you to sign right here on the spot. I'm not going to do that kind of pressure. Now, I know tons of successful real estate agents who bring that paperwork, so don't get me wrong. Everyone has their own way. But it's that sentiment. You know, don't go to a listing presentation trying to get the listing. Go to the listing presentation trying to earn their trust. And the only way to earn someone's trust is by authentically being there to help.
Amazing. I want to make sure we get to everybody.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. It's beautiful. This idea, this is going to be new to a lot. What you're hearing from Mike is going to be new to a lot of you, and you're going to have your own version of it, but it's so critical. This idea of building professional trust is everything, and it's the only thing. And without it, you're going to get find people that need to buy and sell, and they're going to disappear on you because they don't have that professional trust. And professional trust cannot be gamed. There is no technique and there is no shortcut. There's a methodology. You have to be heart is you're trustworthy, you're honest, you're moral, you're ethical. Head is you're really good at what you do. And professional trust comes from both of those things, and there's no shortcut, right, Mike?
Absolutely. And you got to have both.
You got to have both. Good. Brian, is that helpful? Great. Thank you so much. Sylvia, can we get you up here?
I'm here.
All right. Let me just you're unmuted. Let me just find you here to get a pin in you. You are pinned, girl. Hello. So nice to see you. And so here you guys go. Mike has the two old girls as his mentors. What would you like to bring to the table for us today, beautiful lady who helps Mike so much?
Well, I think I'm just going to enhance what Mike has said. I've always said, if you look after the client is going to look after you. Service their best interests, and they will come back to you over and over and over again. And Mike really cares about the community and the people that he's working with. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to care. And sometimes, it's not going to happen right away. It's like Mike said, it's a long game. You have to gain their trust. And a lot of times, the trust comes quickly, especially when they are referred by a client that Mike has already taken care of. And I think that's something that salespeople leave on the table, are the referrals from the clients that love you. And I think that, working and keeping in touch with those people's needs. And I mean, you said some are still contacting people 3 months after the deal closed, but that's going to get you referrals, Mike, whether it's the intention or not, but that's what's going to happen. But I also think Mike asks the right questions when he's working with people. And that gets him to dig into that second layer or that third layer of what the issues are. And asking the right questions can get you a lot further than trying to ignore what the issues are. But one of the things that I think is truly Mike is he also has fun with his business and he doesn't take himself too seriously. Yes, he's a serious agent, but he doesn't take himself too seriously and has fun. I mean, if you've ever watched his his videos on walking through his new listings, and it really does keep you entertained. And you might think, well, what's he doing jumping on the bed or laying in the tub or whatever? But I'm telling you, it puts a smile on your face, and you want to work with someone who's going to make you feel good. And I think that's he's charming. He's absolutely charming and fun. So if I could add anything to this is work hard, don't take yourself too seriously, but look after the client. That's the main thing. Is that what you were looking for, Suze?
Wasn't looking for anything specific. Just love bringing these amazing people to the forefront and getting them to share. And Sylvia has an opportunity to see a side of Mike I don't see because she's the managing broker, so I don't deal with anything legal or those last minute things. But she also knows a lot more about his prospecting, and because that's not really what Mike and I spend a lot of time talking about. we go under more into the communication. So yeah, Sylvia, thank you for sharing that, and thanks for looking after the other half of this guy. It's awesome. It's nice to share the work with you. Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, who else has a question for us? Please don't be shy, you guys. This is an amazing opportunity for you guys to see what's going on. Don't be shy, you guys. You've
And
intimidated.
you can ask the like, where do you get where do you get the most business, or any of the things that feel like they don't have heart or something. If you just have a real typical real estate question, don't be shy in that stuff too, because we'll bring it back to something good.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to find out about Farmer Mike because he does have an amazing community following. So we've got Jen and Susan up. So let's start with Jen. Thanks, Jen. I'm going to find a pin here for you. Put you up on the screen. Good to see you. Oh, you're not. Your video's not on. But go ahead. And you're muted.
That's purposefully. I got caught in a bit of a rainstorm, so maybe I'm staying off.
Okay, perfect.
What I'd like to ask is, when you first started to transform your business, what was the top priority for you to escalate it to be the agent you are today?
Well, where we started, that I couldn't believe worked, was Suze teaching me the meaningful conversations daily. That really was what took it to the next level. So she looked at my business and stripped it apart just so we could see. I mean, this all seems like we're really focusing on mind and heart right now, which is the truth. But this is ultimately about business. So she was like, look, tear this down. How many places did you sell? How many discounts did you? She went through the whole thing so she could see what kind of business I was running. And all I wanted was like, screw what I was running. Help me get more business. And it was the meaningful real estate conversations thing. And I didn't start with call 10 people a day, knock on 100 doors a day. It wasn't that way. It was just 6 meaningful real estate conversations a day. Meaningful. What's going on with you guys? Why would you need to but I wouldn't go in, hey, can we have a real estate chat? I would end up, because I was the real estate guy and I had a renovation business at the time, I would just find a way to talk to people about anything real estate related. And I found it more effective. And then very quickly, they would call again with another thing. Hey, can you help me with this? And can you help me with that? And hey, do you work in Oakville? Could you sell my mom's house in Oakville? Is that a big ask? And it just perpetuated this just from building trust. And I'll tell you guys, I know more about houses than 99% of people, but I would lots of the time not know the answer. And you know what I'd say? I don't know the answer to that, but let me call. I know like 17 people who will. Let me call and get you the answer. Send them a link, send them something. Now you're their source, the person that's given them their resources. And people always trust someone who says, I don't know, let me figure it out, and then gets them that information on a timely basis. So that's really where it grew. And it sounds like magic beans. Oh, you just had a bunch of meaningful
I'm gonna interrupt you on the magic beans. I love his analogies, but I am cognizant of time. And there's some really cool stuff in what Mike just said, and I want to get to the next question. You know, he said meaningful conversations because this is communication skills, and this isn't a technique. It's a mindset. It's a way of thinking. There's this depth to communication skills, and Sylvia said it. Mike asks a lot of questions. They're not just any questions. Mike spent a lot of years learning how to communicate in a way that builds that trust quickly. That is what we got to do to be really good at this. So Mike, that was beautiful. Thank you. Susan Huntley, you know us both.
I do know you, Bob. Pleasure to see everyone. So we kind of just touched on what my question was going to be. Suze, you mentioned Mike's farm community, and my question was going to be, Mike, how important do you think building a farm community was in building your business? And then on top of that, we talked about meaningful conversations. And Suze and I talked about meaningful conversations, and I love the idea, but when you said you had 6 meaningful conversations a day, how did you create those conversations? Was it because you were out in your community door knocking, or how did they come about?
Great question. So I got to 50 deals a year, 0 farming. And I say this in my listing presentations. I'm Mr. Mimico. Everyone knows it, but guess what? I only did 35% of my business in Mimico this year. And so I started all those skills, guess what? With the people I already kind of knew, because it was close to home. And listen, you start converting the uncle who thinks you're a jackass, you can convert anyone in the future, right? You start to build that trust. And I would call, one of them, honestly, Sue said it on the head. I call people for help all the time. I'll call a rich guy or a woman or they, whatever, and say, you're so successful with what you're doing. Can you help me? And then that would lead into their genuine, them seeing how curious and how smart I was, or not that I ever have felt smart ever, but just, I'm smart because I've come to them for advice. And I would start there. And everyone has some real estate thing. No one knows this stuff. And so that's where it started. And then I took that to the community based on Sylvia. And that added this whipped cream to my business. I got it to a Sunday, and then the farm was like the whipped cream. Now, when my kind of sphere of influence has pittered out because everyone's in financial trouble and in different situations right now, the farm's come back in and filled the gaps because the farm keeps growing because we keep working on it. Mm-hmm. But it really just started with, I would go into my phone and go through the A's. And here's the best thing. I would call ex-girlfriends' dads, the hardest people. And you wouldn't believe the client that I'm pretty sure swore to me the last time I talked to them. Hey, checking in on you guys. What's going on? And you wouldn't believe, oftentimes, surprisingly, the hardest person, or the person you thought was, not the person to call, ends up being the person who needs the meaningful conversation the most. And it grew from there. Because once you're doing 30, 40 deals and you have some money coming in and stuff, you can start to do some of that other stuff without fear. Like, if you have a billboard and you're terrified of the advertisement payment, it's not going to work. You got to have the billboard, know 100 people, go out and talk to them with a flyer, and then have an event and all that stuff and tie it all together with confidence.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, Susan had a couple of really good questions there. Is that, the meaningful conversations, like how do we have them? And honestly, guys, there's 5.5 million people in Southern Ontario, or 6.5 million people. And if it's not that hard to find 6 a day to have a meaningful conversation with, like, it's just a perspective. That's that inner world thing that gets in our way. And Mike uses many, many ways that, now he doesn't have to overcome that. He's comfortable having conversations, and he has the opportunity to have many conversations because of his marketing, but also because of his clients and his listings and his activity. But the fun is really interesting. Like he said, convert the jackass uncle. And I can tell you that Mike and I have had that conversation of the game of trying to convert someone, right? Someone who's very difficult. Instead of it crushing him, he brings his fun that Sylvia was pointing out. It's, how can I do this? How can I do this? And then when he gets it, he's like, yeah, hey, Mike.
100%.
And so, have some fun with it. People are interesting for sure. Thanks so much, Susan. Erin, you had your hand up and then it disappeared. Did you have to run? And does anyone else have time? We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
I was going to ask Mike how he likes to track his conversations, so he actually knows that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Ooh, this will be good.
Yeah. I don't track them. I've paid $40,000 probably over the years in CRMs. Don't use them. Now my wife has one, and this is only like 4 months old, because she sits me down so she can track them. So twice a week, someone tells me, you haven't followed up with that person, or she'll say, you haven't followed up with this person. I go, yeah, I did. I talked to them on Wednesday, and she'll type it into a thing. And then that just kind of works so she can keep it, because I'm trying to grow I got to a point where I couldn't grow anymore and still give the service. And Suze kind of went, whoa, let's grow you powerfully and effectively. Let's not spill over and get sloppy. And so we kind of tied this back into a different place. So I don't really watch all that stuff. And one of my knacks is I can say I talked to you last year and I'll remember it was about your eaves troughs. Or I'll see someone and they'll go, you don't know who I am. And I'm like, are you kidding? You're on Venevri with the red house. You remember? And I just do. I don't remember names, but I remember houses and I remember problems and I remember people's needs. And I'm not saying you need to be there. I'm just saying I've watched so many agents organize their way to a feeling of success. And it was somewhere in between Suze and Sylvia. Stop trying to be so organized and just action some of this stuff and organize it later. Action it. You're better to call 10 people than think about who you're going to call and only call 3.
Oh my God, that was so good. And it just occurred to me, right? The two mentors that Mike has kind of brought on were both productive, very productive agents. We were that, go out and do it, don't think about doing it, which is why we encourage him to go out and do it and don't think about it. But Aaron, you've raised a really important point, right? We've got a lot of people trying to sell us a lot of technology all the time in real estate. And you've got to be really careful about what I'm not saying. I mean, technology is great. Here we are, right? We're all in the same room from all across the country. It's fantastic. I'm not down on technology, but the technology must be our tool, not we are the tool of technology. And so, if you get a CRM and you think the CRM is going to make all the difference in your business, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. You need to like be doing the business and then use the technology to keep it tidy. And I'm not saying that as well as I'd like to, but it's a really critical thing is that you do the doing. Mike captured it in the analogy, better to make 10 phone calls than to think about making 10 phone calls and make 3. And I think, that's a really great analogy to take away. Thanks, Mike. Aaron, something else?
I was just going to say, and it's funny hearing it come from Mike. I know you'd appreciate me hearing it from someone else.
Thanks. Yeah, very cool. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else? Should move Aaron's pin there. Everybody's being very quiet. Oh, wait, there we go. Thanks, Anne. Anne Stanley, Kelowna, Remax in Kelowna. Go ahead, Anne. I will find a pin for you as you go.
Thanks, Susan, Mike, and everyone. I just wondered when you talked about fear, Mike, do you recall when you did have fear and how did you move past it? Because you said, well, suddenly then you've just got the confidence and you're going and it's fun.
Yeah, so I have fear right now. And I'm gonna have fear later and I'm gonna have fear tomorrow. And so the I'll tell you right now, Suze is my personal coach. 75% of why I still have her and will have her for 15, 20 more years is because I need someone once in a while to slap me across the face and say, stop, bring this together, hone in on this. And so, like, I'll be honest with you guys, I go to a therapist. I just had a session at 9 a.m. I'm dealing with little Mike Majeski and what gets in the way. I feel like I don't get every listing. All the things that tear us apart sometimes because our ego gets in there and all that stuff, I'm feeling all of it. The point is to rise to the top enough that you have buoyancy up there. And so this work will keep you up there. One, getting really good. I'll tell you, the person who taught me about Suze was this agent in Toronto who was slaying it on another level. And I called her and said, hey, teach me to advertise so I can be like you. And she said, well, how many houses do you sell a year? And I was like, I'm selling like 12, 15, thinking I was the best. She said, well, you're obviously not selling enough real estate to be any good at. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, how I did it was I got a coach and I got really good to a level I didn't even know existed. Everyone comes in, like, this is not a lie, guys. go to the ORIA course as people come out with their new license and tell people, get someone to admit they're not a good realtor. No one will. It's the most bizarre thing. Everyone, our uncles think they're realtors. You know what I mean? The neighbor thinks they're the realtor. And so we fall into this thing, you know, there's realtors, the guy who is #1 with Remax right now, he's making $4 or $5 million a year, I think. Sylvia, correct me if I'm wrong. This is like CEO tech company money. And yet we think we're all Bill Gates, right? Right out of the course. You know how many books and things and lessons that guy's learned? And I didn't even know. One, I didn't know realtors were selling 50, 60, 70, 120 houses a year. I didn't know. And I didn't know you could be good. And I didn't know I just thought you'd be good based on drive and all that stuff. And so that made me, it builds confidence. You score enough goals and you start going around other people with the ball so often, you go, you know what? I'm decent at this. And that starts to build the confidence, and the money from those deals helps you take risks with marketing and build longevity into those things. I see you looking at me, Suze, and it all kind of culminates, but it's also maintenance. I'm going to therapy. I have a coach. Sylvia and I sit down. Sylvia will tell you, hopefully not in the future, but in the last while, every 6 months, we're dealing with stuff that's not necessarily a fault, but it's part of real estate that causes fear. And we work through it with a pen and a paper and a phone and a computer.
Mike, I gotta stop you. That's gold, though. I mean, it's gold. It's beautiful. And I think everybody's just sighing some relief because of what their experiences are and that they feel the same thing and that you're just being so real.